This is our new 2020 grinder, 4-function, dual heads. It has dump for the debris and also for the fine powder dust. And we'll kind of go over the truck. It says a 20-inch by 10-inch wide head on this model. You have your carriage wheels, which actually make contact with the ground, and then your cutting head, which is actually opposite. We do have self-centering, so we can center to the road angle, and it'll actually repeat whatever angle the road is on. 2 cylinders, 2 LTVs for position, nice hydraulic motor, belt drive. Pretty quick change for the cutter. You can see we got plenty of room here. Take off these 2 bolts, remove the whole dust shield, and you're exposed to your cutter right there. We have a travel lock for doing transport. So when you're in transport mode, that's down, and that'll take away any drifting. It's a 150-gallon hydraulic fuel reservoir, or 75 gallon on the fuel reservoir for the pony motor, and then we have a 150-gallon hydraulic reservoir. This machine has 2 heads on it, so there's a right and left hand vacuum, and that is automatically switched whenever you select either right hand or left hand. So it'll switch to whichever side you're using. These are the hopper bottom. This is for your heavy debris. Both doors on the bottom, they retract to let the debris out. Have a 15-horse Cyclone, which is hydraulic powered. We have the valves located in the rear on this one, and this will open and close the debris hopper doors. They're labeled here, pulled open, push to close. And they are marked also green and white and red to kind of distinguish which lever does what. This model has a 175 horse Cat diesel on it. Two sets of hydrostatic pumps, one for the creep drive and then one for the cutter heads. Then you have your auxiliary functions. It's our electric cabinet here. These are the ground controls for out here, and I'll go over those in just a second. So wiring inside. There'll be a schematic included with the manual. When we start operating the truck, the first thing we got to do is set a reference and a 0 home position for the road surface. So what we'll do is we'll get the truck running, we'll unlock the travel lock, and then we'll come out here. The head will advance out as far as we need it from inside the cab. Then we'll run the head down, which this is going to be your gauge wheels. We'll run those down until they contact the road, and then you'll see the truck kind of lift up and we're applying pressure, and that's to ensure that we got a footprint on the road. And then we'll bring the cutter down until we just touch the road to set our 0 height, and we're going to hold the 0 set button for 5 seconds, and that'll set the 0 height on the road. At that point, after we have that done, we're going to want to raise the cutter head up and then the carriage up, the gauge wheels, to a position that we want to travel down the road. And at that point, we'll hit the reference set, hold that down for 3 seconds, and that'll set our travel from cut to cut. There is a high speed. It's whenever we're manually moving this, it is up and down for the cutter head and up and down for the carriage, and it is slow, but there is a high speed override in case you want to move fast. The home button does just that. It takes the whole carriage, cutter head, and everything to the home position. It has 6-inch vacuum line. This customer opted for a water tank, which is mounted in the location that they spec'd. And that's pretty much the grinder unit. Okay, we have the control here. This is a +1 Danfoss control. This controls the engine and all the grinding functions. So at the first button up here we have grinder start, and that'll start the grinder. We have RPM, which will adjust the engine RPM, and we have creep drive engage. Over here we have a setup. Down here we have auto, manual, semi-auto, depending on what mode you want to be in. We have a faults, so if there's any faults from any sensors, that'll read out. And we have engine info. Under engine info, it'll give you your coolant temp, RPMs, engine oil, and engine oil temp. Under here also, we have plunge speed settings, creep speed cut settings, and creep travel speed settings. And these will control the percentage of down rate that we have programmed. So if you want to slow the plunge down, if you get into some hard material, you can slow it down here. Go back into that engine. There's an auxiliary function here, and this will be auxiliary 1 through 6. And this will be for your outputs for 12 volt outputs, cameras, signboards, whatever you choose. The black button on this one is auxiliary 1, which is water on and off, and that's why it's not on here. It's not actually on the joystick. Okay, so once we engage the, getting ready to engage the creep drive, we'll want to put it in neutral. Once we have the transmission in neutral, we'll depress the brake pedal and then hit the creep drive. Once we hit that, that'll turn green and let you know your creep drive is enabled. We'll go to the setup page, and this is where you can select what kind of cut you're doing. This is a dash cut, and we'll push the button here and arrow through. Continuous cut, plunge cut, and a double profile plunge cut. Single profile plunge cut. So underneath this, let's go through single plunge cut. We'll have what side are we going to cut with, right side or left side. So we can select right or left. So we're going to just say right. Starting depth's 100 thou, ending depth's 400 thou. Lead in length is 40 inches. Plunge depth 1.5 inches, and spacing is 5.9 in this case. So those are the arrows that you'll use. You'll arrow to each one of those. Once you get to that, you can adjust the length by just pushing the up and down arrow. And we'll go back and go into the manual auto button. So in auto, like in plunge cut, in auto mode, you press the yellow button for cycle start on the joystick, and it'll make its plunge cut. After it's made its plunge cut, it'll go to whatever distance you set in there, 40 feet, 80 feet, and do the next plunge cut. If you're doing a pre-laid out road where you have to match lines, you're going to go into semi-auto. You're going to press cycle start. It'll do the plunge cut, and then it'll wait for you to advance it to the next spot. You hit plunge cut again, and it'll actually make a second cut. So you're driving in semi-automatic. In automatic, it's driving itself. In manual mode, that is for setup. That's for actually extending the head out. And you can extend the head out right or left, depending on what side you are, with these buttons. So if you need to do a little correction right to left, you can do that from in the cab here with these two arrow buttons. That's pretty much it for the control.